I'm Lex.
And I'm Tay.
And this is our take on college. All right, everybody, welcome back. This is part 2 of our special guest episode with Sarah Marriott. Wow, I can't speak. I almost put those two together. But we're really excited. Our first section with her went really well. Super cool to get to know things that I didn't know about and that our viewers will get to know her more, because I definitely know that Sarah will be back on the podcast in the future. So definitely a really great, kind of glimpse into the future and just getting to know her a little bit better. So we're going to finish off with some of the questions we have left for her, and then we're kind of going to talk about a little bit of a fun subject that we all have in common, which we will get into later. So I'm going to have Taylor start off on the first question.
So we talked a lot about your freshman year. So just a little, catch-up question. How's this year going?
Yeah, this year is completely different than my freshman year in almost every way. Like Taylor talked about in the beginning, I was the invisible roommate for a little bit this year. It is so ironic that I will literally be getting ready, running late, walking out the door, and Taylor will just be walking in. The amount of times we'll see each other on the elevator, we'll see each other at the door, and it's what are the odds that I'm literally opening the door and you're walking through it? There's so much of that. I am working this year around 30 hours a week, it's a lot to be a full-time college student and work and be in the amount of classes at the level of classes I'm in right now. I did that a bit second semester last year, but I feel like I balanced it a lot better this year, and Taylor's pretty cool. And so I've kind of loved it.
That's awesome. Love to hear it, because I'm kind of in the same boat right now. I'm involved in a lot of extracurricular activities as well as having a job. I am working just shy of 10 hours a week, which may not seem like a lot, but I am putting in at least 20 hours, if not more, every week on the 5+ activities that I do on top of the classes that I'm taking. So I get that one. And I know Tay is busy with different things. So it can be a lot at times, but having good management is great. So we're excited that you're here and that you're spending time with us. With that, are you involved in any campus organizations on top of work?
Actually, yes, I am. First year, I kind of tested out some clubs. Like I said, I just am really busy. Also finding time for myself and everything, and staying on top of everything in my life. It's hard to keep adding to that, especially because clubs are they're extracurriculars, you know what I mean? They're great to be a part of, but they are in addition onto everything else I've got going on. So I've kind of decided that I would sprinkle in there through different clubs last year, but I really wanted to commit to 1 or 2 clubs this year. The second club is still up for debate. I'm choosing between a couple, but I am involved in Culture of Care here at IU. This is my first semester in that club specifically, but it is such a cool club. It kind of stands for everything I'd like to stand for. Their 4 core values are sexual well-being, general respect for other people, drug and alcohol awareness, and mental health. So it's very tied into everything that I'm going to be doing in my career through. So it's great to have a club on campus that it's constantly doing things to just sprinkle joy into everyone's day. They had Kona Ice the other day. They were handing out succulents, little things that just make it easier to be a college kid. And I think you'll see a lot of their stuff throughout this next year too. So, yeah.
Yeah, so our third episode was actually titled Hot Takes. So we wanted to know if you had any hot takes, any IU-related hot takes, pop culture, just so we can get to know a little bit more about you.
I definitely love some pop culture. I love pop culture. Me and Taylor, a lot of our bond is just sitting here talking about, Taylor Swift, of course, like just different people. I'm trying to think of specifically hot takes that I have. I think, did we all watch the football game with Taylor? She brought out Sabrina with her. And like, if you know me, Sabrina Carpenter is like my number one. Like, I love her, style icon, like everything. And so I just thought that was pretty cool. Trying to think what else has been going on. I feel like I see it on TikTok all the time.
Dancing with the Stars, the first elimination. That's a hot take we have. Okay.
All right. I could go and do you know?
Don't spoil it for me
Don't
because
spoil
I
it?
haven't seen it yet. Oh my gosh, please. Taylor and I last year when we were living in the dorms, we would watch Dancing with the Stars on Monday nights, and we were really into it, and we would stay up late watching it live on Disney Plus. But this year, I haven't been able to do that, and I've been meaning to come over, and I know you guys watched it the other night, so love you both very much, but keep that hot take to yourself because I don't know yet.
I mean, you can say that like we don't agree.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like name drop or say anyone specifically, but first of all, the cast this season is a bit problematic. Just if you know who the cast members are, there's some that are questionable, and it kind of makes me like frustrated with Dancing with the Stars that they're giving people a platform that probably should not need another platform. But I am team Jason Mraz, so I'm putting that out there. I'm claiming it now. That's what I'm going to say.
I was going to say I saw the first person because I have never seen why am I spacing?
Vanderpump.
Yes, Vanderpump Rules. Growing up, my mom watched a lot of Bravo, but I never watched it with her. Like, I would watch like true crime shows and stuff like that with her instead of like reality TV. So I just this year got into like all of the tea with everything and with, Ariana and all that stuff. But that was the one person I was excited to see. And then after that, I completely agree. The cast, like majority of the cast is just, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, I honestly think a lot of it is for views. Clearly, they're trying to really bring back Dancing with the Stars, which it's a great show. I used to watch that with my mom all the time, but there were just quite a couple of questionable characters that they put on the cast list. And to me, it was really disappointing. And like, there were some that I was like, oh, that's really awesome. Like, they're coming out after being gone from like the limelight for a while. And then there are others I'm like, why? Like, you need to go home. Like, I don't want to see you. And not to be that person, but I was really annoyed with Jordan Sparks all of last season. She's great and her personality is great, but it was just one of those things where it turned into very much like pick me, and I was like, I don't want to see that. And I know that there are characters, there are people on the show that are already giving that off, and I haven't even seen it yet. But Tay looks like she has something she wants to add.
No, and like not to be that person, but like when it comes to the overall like level of competition, I feel like there's like one or two standouts, but like pretty much everyone else is like mid. Like there's nobody that's like, I mean, there's people that 2 or 3 that are like, oh, they can actually like dance, like they can keep tempo. But then the rest of them, it's like, oh, like you're here because of like your personality, and that's what's gonna keep you here. So then there's stuff like that, and then there's other people that I'm like, get off my screen. Like we were screaming at the one just because we're like, we don't know why you're here. Like, so you need to watch.
I also wanted to say, like, with that, you were like the personality. I mean, again, about the clicks and stuff, it's their name. And that's honestly like Charlie D'Amelio, bless you. Like, I understand, like, as a teenager, that has to be really hard to be like in such a limelight, like constantly, and to have people drag you when you're literally like, I think she's like, what, 18, 19 years old. She's our age and has friends that actually go to school here. Like, I couldn't imagine like trying to be a teenager growing up in a world where social media is just like absolutely dragging. And she's a great dancer. If we're being honest, she of course had better skills than most of the people on the show, but like she dedicated and worked her butt off. And you know what? I mean, having the name she did probably, tainted her win and the fact that she can dance very, very well. But there are just certain people whose name got them on the show, and I know that they're probably going to stay because of their name, and they won't want to admit that. But with Lynn Goodman gone now, I don't feel like there's going to be and the rest of the judges are great and all, but Lynn truly was talking about ballroom dance and the different types of etiquette and technique that go along with it, and he truly was what kept that show dancing related. And now I just feel like it's a very much like pop cultural like mishmash of people wanting to come in and views for the show to like become popular again, even though it's not really dancing anymore. It's literally just names. But anyways, I think actually we're going to get into now the thing that we were going to talk about. And we mentioned in the last episode that all of us did show choir. So I think I'm going to have Taylor start off because we have a connection, and then we'll get into Sarah and talk about the different, just the different happenings of show choir. So Tay, I'm going to let you kick this one off.
Yeah, so fun fact, which me and Lexi may be crashing this. Well, it's not really crashing because we'll have to pay to get in. But Lexi's former choir is competing at my choir's competition this year. So we may have to pull up to that. But speaking of choirs competing at other choirs' competitions, me and Sarah found out that my choir traditionally competes at her choir's competition, their second competition of the year, for like multiple years. And it's one of those things where it's like, I know we've been in the same place at the same time, had no idea. We were in Nashville at the same time, but I wasn't competing in nationals, but you were. So it's just this weird thing of like everybody's like connected, and it's just one whole big it's one whole big blob. Like everybody is connected somehow.
It's just crazy to me, like that aspect of it. And then you and I, like when we first started talking over social media and we're like thinking about rooming, it was just the fact that we would talk about a certain choreographer that we both had, and I didn't realize that he worked with your school because he had talked about this, because I went to a bigger high school, and I didn't realize the amount of Indiana schools that he works with, because he travels across the nation. I mean, he does work everywhere, and it was just crazy that he used to tell Taylor's choir that they were never going to be as good as we were, but then he'd come to us and then tell us we were never going to be as good as the next big choir that beat us consistently. And I mean, that in itself is problematic, but it's just so funny to think that we both had that through the same person, and would talk about Taylor's high school. Funny enough that I didn't know and forgot to I didn't put two and two together when he'd come and talk to us. I just never thought about that ever, that was actually the high school that you went to. And it's just, that's really weird. But if Sarah, if you want to kind of talk about a little bit about your experience with show choir.
Yeah, I actually was asked to be on a podcast that kind of is revolving around the show choir community, and they bring a lot of different people on and everything. And we filmed 2 whole episodes of it, and this sounds bad, but I kind of was like, hey, I actually rethought this. I'm not going to put this out. If you could maybe scratch that, or we could refilm it. Just because these are real emotions that people go through and real scenarios. And show choir notoriously is full of drama. It's a lot of dramatic people. That sounds really bad, but I can say it as one, And I was very heavily involved in my show choir. I also was a brand rep for my choreographers that went around and I modeled their apparel, and kind of got to know other, leadership and main figures and other choirs through that. And I have still to this day some amazing friends that I've met through it, some, ride or dies, but also it was not always a positive experience. I feel like you guys would probably agree at times. There's a lot. Being in a small school, in a small group of people, stuff gets messy. Like you were saying about the choreographers and like comparing and stuff. At my school, I actually, like I said, I was dance captain for a few years, and I actually choreographed a lot for just our choirs in like the middle school here and there, and actually another group in Indiana. And I know what it's like to be on the other side of things and leading. And sometimes, there is tough love and stuff involved. And I definitely looked up to other leadership in the past years and, some adults in the situation. And looking back, it's not that deep. Like, it's really not. And I hate to say it, but they would put so much pressure on high school age children. And it's like, we have jobs and friends and school and fun things, this isn't our life. And I think, it can get messy at times.
Yeah, like going off of that, I didn't finish show choir out of high school. The way my high school worked is you weren't allowed or you weren't eligible to join until sophomore year. So you would have to audition at the end of your freshman year. You were in ladies cadet or men's cadet. They've since changed the names, but that was the names of the choir that we had when I was a freshman. So I did ladies cadet, and I had also done a miniature version of show choir in middle school, and was very much excited to go to high school. I knew that I wanted to do it for so long. And I remember being told by my middle school choir teacher that I would not make it. And I wanted to stick it to him so hard, and I did. And I ended up making it into the unisex. So the way it works at my school is, as a female, or as someone who identifies as a female, you would literally go straight to the unisex choir, because we don't have a men's unisex. We just have a women's unisex. You would go through there. But if by some reason or magical chance you were Broadway bound and destined, you would somehow get into the mixed. So the mixed was above us, but they were always like, you're on the same playing field. That's not true at all. At least at my school, they very much favored the mixed group. But and I, again, was like, fine, I want to be the underdog. I will show you. And I did. And I decided to stay there throughout my senior year. At the end of my junior year, I was asked to change, and I said no, because I didn't want to be shoved in the back. I didn't want to become something that my directors just wanted to, I just wanted to be my own person, and I wanted to do what made me happy. And what made me happy was being in the unisex choir and being a leader. And I knew that if I had changed, I would have been stripped of all my leadership roles, and I would have just been thrown in the back. And I didn't want to dance with boys. They smell, they're gross. Like, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And that's kind of when things took a turn. And I felt like a lot of my problems with show choir started to arise after that. I was quite often banished to the back, whether that was through choreography. If we were in class, I did lead my section. I was an alto, and I was a voice that consistently carried. They would have to tell me to stop singing to have the other women in our choir show that I'm the one consistently carrying the group, and that can't be something that happens, especially when we go to competition. I'm a loud person. And they were like, that's great, but we can't have you run out of fuel and then have no alto section. So that was the one thing that I guess that was like, okay, at least you're thinking about me in that way. But there was a lot of tension between me and the directors. I wanted to be president, and everyone knew that. And I was told that I would have been a really good candidate for that. And I wasn't even considered in the long run. I know a lot of people voted for me, along with my ex-best friend, who we would have been co-presidents together. But I ended up not receiving that position and ended up staying in the position that I had before, and was just very miserable. I was not happy. I wasn't friends with people anymore. I decided to remove myself. And then after I won my pageant in January of my senior year, I knew that I needed to leave because my directors were not supportive. And going off of the whole, you need to be a student first, that was a lie. We were not students first. We were not children first. We were show choir candidates. And that was our life. We were practicing almost every night of the week for 3 to 4 hours after school. I had a job. I had several jobs, and I had responsibilities through other clubs at school and other expectations through the classes that I had, because I took AP classes and things like that. And so for me, the mental health aspect that you were talking about, like it just very much was not something that was ever acknowledged or something that was appreciated. And I don't know if you felt the same way, Taylor, but I had to excuse myself. So I left. I didn't even give them notice. I went to the counselor's office and I said, I need to be removed from the class ASAP. I cannot do it anymore. I will not sit through another class. And she knew that if I had come to her with anything, I had thought about it for a long time. So she said, all right. She waited to give them the call until the end of the day. I didn't show up to class that day. And I handed her the folder and had someone else come and pick it up from my class from her and take it in and return my things, because I was never going to step foot in that room ever again. And I quite literally did not until Miss Indiana, because we had to interview into the choir room because it was big. So she calls them later that day, like at the very end of the day. I'm already gone, and I come in the next day, and my ex-best friend, we had a class together, and we were civil at the time, and she was like, You're gone? And I said, yeah, like I'm gone for good. I'm not coming back. And she was like, well, they got a call yesterday, and it was at the end of the day because we had practice right after school and we were gearing up for competition, and they shut their door and started screaming over the phone with my counselor and just being like, what did she say about the organization? What did she say about us? And all these things. And it wasn't anything about what I was doing or what I was going through. They didn't care. And my female director kind of knew it was coming, and she was more gentle than my male director. And she was like, you know what? I'm glad that she's, stepping away and taking the time that she needs, but he did not care. And, that was kind of how it went for me. I dedicated a lot of time and enjoyed it until we got to the very end, and it just became very toxic. So Taylor, if you kind of want to talk about your experience.
Yeah, so I was a 4-year member of our high school group, and we were small mix. But we actually had a full competing choir in middle school. So our middle school program, the way it was, is it kind of fed into the high school a little bit. Like the high school group, I remember, was always around us when we were in middle school. So then it kind of was like, you knew who was going to make the high school group and you knew who wasn't. So we were always around the high school. And I remember it was just those older kids, I looked up to them a lot, and I still talk to some of them today. And like, I know they're doing great. And overall, my experience was relatively positive. I mean, we were small mix. I think the most we ever competed with was 32. So then it's like all these 32 personalities are coming together because stage was small. You were either in the front where everybody could see you, or you nobody could really see you. So I mean, you had to work obviously for spots and stuff you got, but I mean, I think all in all, it was a pretty good experience for me, except for, personal issues towards the end. But I mean, I remember sticking it out, but it was definitely hard senior year. But I think overall my experience was good, and I still have friends that are in it currently. Love them to death. They're doing great. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying though with the drama and just the pressure, and it's really not that deep. And yeah, I mean, I can't say don't take it too seriously to my friends that are still in there, because they know the situation because they're currently in it. And I know 2 or 3 of them actually listen to this, and they're going to hear me talk about it. But yeah, I mean, enjoy it.
And with that, I want to say, my experience is not what everybody had. There were a lot of people that enjoyed it. It just, unfortunately, my situation was I stopped letting people use me as a doormat. And that was not only in my friendships, but also in my relationship as a liaison between the directors, myself, and the rest of my choir. And so when I started to stand up for myself, people didn't like that, and it just made things uncomfortable. And, part of me for a while regretted it, because I had wanted it for so long and was so happy my sophomore year when we went to Nashville before COVID happened. And we just had a stellar year. We did lose one time. We came in second place, but we had so much fun, and there was this natural and healthy competition between everybody to work our butts off. But it was in such a good way that no one disliked anyone, and we just were outperforming almost everyone we were competing against. And when we got to junior year after COVID happened, I mean, that the shit went to the fan. Like, it was just horrible. And I was a soloist. And I also, had moved up from being kind of further in the back because, as you progressively get better, they have their better dancers put in specific places. So I was in the front second row, like majority of that show. And I get COVID, we weren't really performing for anyone, but I was proud of myself. And I hadn't regressed at all. And we come into the following year and I'm shoved in the back. And I know it was because I didn't agree with what was going on in the politics that were being played, which is so stupid to even say that there's politics in high school show choir. But like, there was. And it mentally affected me so, like, I was just so drained and I was so unhappy. And again, I don't want to have this like discourage anyone or anything like that, but I just know that our choir was going through a lot of turmoil and is still going through quite a lot of change right now and will be in like within the next year or two. I believe one of the directors will probably be stepping down, especially since their child has graduated, their only child has graduated high school, and will be taken over with someone who has a very different vision than what it used to be when we were in our golden era, basically. So it's sad, it's bittersweet. I'm excited to see what happens and how things change for them, but part of me wishes that things would have been different, but you know what? That's okay. And Sarah, if you have anything to add before we wrap up, I would absolutely love to hear that.
Yeah. I definitely would just like to say that, like, I have no, I don't want to say that I just have no feelings about choir anymore. And it sucks because I was so involved and I was such a main member of the group for years. Doubling's a lot. I was in 2 groups and I was like the crew lead and stuff for our JV, like name it. And I probably was a part of it. I was not a singer. I will never claim to be a singer. I'll sing in the shower. But I will say that, like, in my experience, I will say never date anyone in your choir. We could talk about that a different day because I have a lot to say. But yeah, there was a lot of people getting involved in other people's relationships where it shouldn't have happened. I have a lot to say. But just to keep it, short and sweet and not bring up any past stuff. Yeah, I will say, we ended up winning state our senior year, or my senior year, not ours, for both of our groups. And our girl group went undefeated. And I was up front a lot my senior year. Just as, dance captain. And there was a lot of favoritism, whatever. And, I worked for what I got. And I also put up with a lot for what I got out of it. And that's just kind of where I ended up. No bad blood. I ended on great terms because winning state, but also there was a lot of negatives to it. Wish them well, but glad to be, moving on. In college, taking that on. And yeah.
Well, we are so grateful that you came on with us this week because we're going to have 2 of your episodes this week. But we, again, just so excited to start a new series with having guests on here. And I think this will be a good one. So we're, Sarah did great and I definitely want to have her back on. And I know Tata feels the same. So, that has been the end of this episode. Super fun things to reminisce on and kind of just, see what the other side looked like for other people. So we love you guys. We are really grateful for all of our listeners. And we just want to say that if you ever need us, as we said, mental health is a really big thing. So we are always here. You can reach out in our comments section, our Q&A on Spotify, or even DM us on Instagram. So with that, I am Lex.
And I'm Tay.
And this has been our take on college.